pajamas and sleep in my old room. It was one of those days that I hated peanut butter and tiny sandwiches. I mean, who was I kidding? I put one sweet, sticky substance on top of another sweet, sticky substance, stopped them on two lousy pieces of bread, and declared myself a chef? I wasn't a chef. I was a 12-year-old playing house. Sometimes I couldn't even swallow my sandwich. I just left it on place and walked away. It has been said, our dreams make us who we are. In the days of peanut butter and tiny sandwiches, author Bridget Gray Sheaf introduces us to a young, hopeful artist who dreams of making his dream a reality in New York City. I moved to New York to become an artist. I know, cliche. Everyone moves to New York to become an artist, or an actor, or a singer, or to find themselves or whatever. I'm not going to try to tell you I was any different than they are, were, or will be. I moved to New York and I was going to paint and be famous and become filthy, stinking rich. That was the plan. Not a very good plan, was it? My parents gave me $1,000 a month to live on. It barely covered rent for the tiny apartment I lived in, and the remainder wouldn't really buy me food. The biggest problem in my mind was food. At home, my mother was always trying out new cuisines and fusing cultures together. There were times we were forced to try Italian meatball tacos or kung pao cabbage. Mostly, we had excellent food with brilliant flavors. College student food didn't really appeal to me. Apparently, noodles in styrofoam cups heated to lukewarm in a microwave counts for an entire meal? It was at this time I discovered the peanut butter and tiny sandwich. Now, the peanut butter and tiny sandwich is not a traditional peanut butter sandwich. Most people go with the standard pairing of peanut butter and jelly. That was just a little too normal for me. Plus, honey never goes bad. It's both timeless and incapable of being spoiled. The sweet, sugary consistency of the honey doesn't overwhelm the creaminess of the peanut butter, but it sparkles through with the liquid golden flavor that you just can't hate. I thought it was brilliant. Here was a traditional sandwich idea modified and made completely my own. Peanut butter and honey sandwiches. I lived off them for weeks. They were cheap, easy to make, and one step above your traditional dorm food. I was taking an art class a few blocks away from my apartment. I walked in with both excitement and terror. I sat down at an easel and started to look at the people around me. The first assignment was to paint a tree. That was all we had to do, paint a tree. Perfect, simple. I would show the instructor what I could do. So I started painting a tree. But it was more than just a tree. I made the perfect tree. I thought of everything. The roots popping up out of the ground, the sunlight coming through the branches. I even mounted a pretty good bird to one of the branches. At the end of the class, my instructor walked around, slowly examining each painting, not saying a word. When he got to mine, he stopped, he coughed slightly, looked at me and said, "Unimpressive." The instructor next said that for the next few weeks, we would be painting something that we found beautiful. Great, that was specific. Thanks. I knew exactly what to do. Not. I was so mad at the end of the class, I slammed the door behind me on my way out. Beauty is so arbitrary. What's that even mean? I was still steaming when I got back to my apartment. Ooh. Beauty, something we found beautiful. I thought for a long time. I just lay there. It must have dozed off at some point because all of a sudden I looked up and it was time for dinner. I gradually walked to the kitchen and slathered peanut butter on some bread. I almost didn't have honey. It was an extra step, almost unnecessary. It was then that I really looked at the honey. It was the color of sunlight glinting on the water. It reminded me so much of the sun. I picked up the bottle and really studied it. The honey had preserved bubbles in its thick, gooey liquid. It looked like a picture of champagne, frozen in time. Then I looked at the peanut butter. The rigid antennas of the creamy spread gave the whole sandwich a swirling effect. When you added the honey, it was like giving water to a thirsty earth, letting the river flow through its mountains. It was pretty clear that I had lost it at that point. There I was, standing in a tiny kitchen in a tiny apartment in the middle of a huge city, staring at two slices of bread, thinking about my potential sandwich. It would be beautiful. A peanut butter and honey sandwich would represent something I had made, something I had created. All of a sudden, I was painting a picture of a peanut butter and honey sandwich, finding the perfect light in the dingy kitchen to accentuate my creation. When I had finished, I fell into bed, sticky and exhausted. This time, when I went to class, I felt like a moron. I painted a picture of a sandwich. I was pretty sure that my instructor was going to have me institutionalized. At the very least, he would kick me out of class. Instead, he came and stood behind me and looked at my painting. As I waited, I decided, I don't care what he thinks. I made this. This is my painting of a peanut butter and honey sandwich, and he can't take that away from me. Surprisingly, my instructor looked at me and said, "Good, it's original. I knew you could do this." It was all I could do not to hug him. I practically skipped home, but I composed myself. After all, I was in New York City. I was going to be an artist, and the first thing I did was paint a peanut butter and honey sandwich. Why not? I figured I deserved one.